Nobody wants to wind up in prison, and many who do spend their long days dreaming of escape. Some do more than dream, they actively plot it, and others are quick to take advantage of an opportunity to go AWOL if one presents itself. Of course, prisons and jails are heavily monitored places, meaning that a lot of brazen escapes have been caught on camera. Here are some of the more outrageous jailbreaks you're ever likely to see. In 2013, at a youth detention center in Sao Paulo, Brazil, guards were taken by surprise one morning when what appeared to be a coordinated riot broke out. Most of the facility's 103 inmates helped take control, holding 29 staff members hostage, including the facility's director. As mattresses burned in the yard, riot police took up positions around the detention center, and then apparently they all took a coffee break at the same time. Amateur footage along with video shot by a police helicopter showed dozens of inmates scaling the facility's walls and shimmying down trees on the other side, then darting across the open field like commandos in the brush. In all, 54 inmates, more than half of the facility's entire population, managed to escape, but their freedom was for the most part short-lived. News outlets quickly reported that as many as 17 of the fugitives had been recaptured almost immediately, and it's a safe bet that the rest didn't get very far. Not to be outdone, inmates at the adult correctional facility in the Brazilian city of Recife staged their own massive breakout in even more dramatic fashion. Surveillance video from the outside of the facility caught an unidentified man hurriedly depositing a package next to an exterior wall, which then exploded, creating a huge hole through which waiting inmates made their dash for freedom. Guards later told media outlets that they had been warning prison officials for some time that something like this might happen. The prison was understaffed, and only half of the guard towers were manned when this incident took place. In this video footage, a huge torrent of prisoners comes pouring through the crumbling wall, and amazingly, some can even be seen changing their minds and running back inside the prison as their fellow inmates go sprinting in the other direction. These guys had the right idea. While a total of 40 inmates were able to escape, only one remains at large. 2 were killed by police, and the rest were recaptured. A couple of inmates at Quebec's St. Jerome Detention Center also decided to take the dramatic way out. They had 2 friends hijack a helicopter at gunpoint, then force the pilot to land on the roof of the prison. The accomplices then dropped a rope down to the waiting inmates below, whose plan was to climb up to the chopper and make good their escape. It didn't exactly go as planned, mainly because scaling a wall using nothing but a rope is a lot harder than it looks in the movies. As seen in this video, the 2 inmates make it most of the way up, but then begin having trouble. They can even be seen having a chuckle at their situation in a few shots, but the accomplices begin to get frustrated as their pals just can't reach the roof. Rather than abort the operation, they improvise and simply take off with the 2 inmates still dangling from the rope. They actually made it to freedom temporarily, but with one of the most conspicuous getaway vehicles one could possibly bring to mind, it didn't last long. Both the inmates and their accomplices were in police custody within hours. Idaho inmate Nicholas Grove made an incredibly risky move in his bid for escape. With a corrections deputy only 50 feet away, he bolted for a fence surrounding the recreation yard, one that is topped with rolls of razor wire. Officials say that the last time an inmate tried to get over this fence, he cut himself so badly that he didn't make it very far. But Grove, as seen in this video, somehow manages to get over and through the deadly obstacle without so much as a scratch before the deputy can get to him. It may be tough to tell from this surveillance video, but this happened in broad daylight, and Grove was able to sprint across the parking lot and disappear into the surrounding neighborhoods. The dangerous felon, who was in the joint for unlawful possession of a firearm and burglary tools, was on the run for over a year before police were able to track him down. All they had to do was keep an eye on his Facebook page. Grove eventually relaxed enough to start posting selfies and references to where he was staying. The video of his escape proves that he's exceptionally nimble, but nobody ever accused him of being a genius. Trinidad and Tobago are Caribbean island nations with a shared government. Their capital city, Port of Spain, is home to its largest prison, which of course houses some dangerous and violent inmates. The danger and violence are made plain on this video, as 3 prisoners who have somehow obtained weapons force a guard to the floor and make their escape. Footage shot by bystanders shows some of the chaos that ensues. The prisoners engage in a firefight with police and guards in which a constable is killed, then are somehow able to get away. Police later killed one of the men on the grounds of a local hospital, and another was discovered dead of gunshot wounds a short time later, although it is unclear whether he sustained his wounds in the battle with the cops. With his fellow escapees dead and the police closing in, the third inmate turned himself in before long. Police bomb squads removed what was described as a hand grenade from the exterior of the prison in the aftermath of the escape, meaning that the incident could have turned even deadlier. Arkansas inmate Derek Estelle tried the oldest trick in the book, the "hey, look over there" gambit, in his bid for freedom, and astonishingly, it worked. Of course, he did have a little help. The convicted armed bank robber can be seen in this video talking on the phone, or pretending to, in an area that inmates are allowed to have access to, which happens to be one open window away from the public lobby. He has an accomplice in this public area who distracts the two officers on duty by asking them questions, and that's when Estelle dives through the open window like Superman, then sprints through the parking lot looking more like the Flash. A deputy is in hot pursuit, but Estelle's girlfriend is waiting in a running car in a nearby alley, and his escape is actually successful. The accomplice was immediately jailed, and Estelle's mother was also charged with aiding in the plot. It took police a couple of months to catch up to Estelle in Florida, where they were able to take him and the girlfriend into custody. In 2015, the judge threw the book at him to the tune of 32 years in prison. At the Walker County Jail near Houston, Texas, security camera footage shows what entailed after a couple of inmates took advantage of the kindness of the night shift guards, persuading them to let them both make phone calls in the early morning hours, when inmates aren't technically supposed to be out of their cells. When one of the guards opens the door to the guard station, the inmates force their way inside, attempting to overpower the three guards on duty. One of them, Derek McCluskey, loses his shirt and the fight, but the other, convicted murderer Trent Archie, breaks free and escapes. Police found Archie at a local residence just a few days later, and his mother and two other women were jailed for withholding information that could have led to his recapture. While no protocol violations are apparent from the tape, officials admitted that their security procedures were in need of review. As for Archie, he won't be going anywhere else anytime soon. After his recapture, he was sentenced to 24 years for his escape, along with his existing 40-year sentence for murder. This incident, which took place in Romania, plays on the security footage like a comedy of errors. Two men are being escorted from a courthouse to a police van, but they're not so anxious to go back to jail. One of them decides to make a break for it by hopping over the fence, and the officer escorting him quickly gives chase, leaving the door wide open and completely forgetting about the second man in his custody. After mulling it over for a moment, the second man says the heck with it and makes a break for it as well. The two men run in opposite directions, and their poor escort can't split himself in half. He goes after the first man, but by the time reinforcements arrive, including what appears to be a courthouse cleaning lady armed with a broom, they're both long gone. One of the men was recaptured later in the day, but the other is apparently in the wind, and their escort just might be out of a job. Oklahoma convict Joe Green produced another bit of unintentional comedy when he decided to bolt from a medical appointment rather than go back to the big house, where he was serving a 5-year sentence for drug possession and assault with a weapon. A nearby motorist shot video as Green came sprinting by on the sidewalk, barefoot and in his bright orange county jumpsuit, with an exasperated deputy in pursuit. Incredibly, despite sticking out like a sore thumb, Green managed to elude recapture for an entire half hour, but he ran directly to his previous home, which is presumably the first place officers checked, and he was back in custody with an additional charge of escaping a county jail before long. Joaquin Guzman, known as El Chapo, is the notorious head of the Sinaloa drug cartel and was once considered the most powerful drug trafficker in the world. He's escaped custody multiple times, but only one of his flights from the law was captured on closed-circuit video. In 2015, El Chapo was in a Mexican maximum security prison looking at anywhere between 300 and 400 years, and also facing the possibility of extradition to the US. He can be seen pacing around and doing something in the shower, the only area not clearly visible to the camera. Then he appears to simply simply sink into the floor, and he's gone. It was later found that under the bathtub was a tunnel leading directly to a storm drain opening, into which El Chapo climbed and allowed himself to be washed away. Just like earlier escapes, this triggered a massive manhunt, ending with a raid 6 months later in which El Chapo was recaptured by federal police with help from the Mexican Navy Special Forces. He was extradited to the United States in January 2017, where he'll shortly be facing a trial on enough charges related to running the Sinaloa cartel to take up another entire list. Mexican officials likely had some advice for their American counterparts. Keep a close eye on this guy.